what did you make of the sudden genie placed back in the bottle by the Brooklyn Nets, and that Durant is now back in the fold, and everybody left, as Shams Charania told us this week, left that meeting energized, and they're going to go try and put that great roster on paper into practice on a court. What do you think of that?
Yo, it's so crazy how long it's been since we talked and how much has happened,
right,
and then not happened in Brooklyn. You know, man, I'm going to choose to look at this as a positive, because when I first heard the story, because I was on the road, I was in Indianapolis on Monday. I went to Indianapolis Monday night, so I spent Tuesday with the Colts, Wednesday with the Bengals, missed the Fight Club yesterday, and then went to Houston. So I was on the road when I heard that all was well in Brooklyn, and I rolled my eyes at first. But then I just said, you know what, KD, thank you. Thank you for making our summer interesting in a way that it ordinarily would not have. Thank you for contributing to society, or more accurately, contributing to the news cycle, giving us free content. So I want to say I appreciate KD, but at the same time I'm annoyed with KD, because that just shows like, yo, man, your trade request wasn't that well thought out. It's like, because if you're going to make that trade request, you can't just go back and be like, you know what, never mind. That's annoying, to say the least, to use my daughter's favorite word. But in reality, I saw that this is where it was going, and many have pointed out the Gobert trade and what the Jazz got for Gobert certainly didn't help. But early on, I actually saw that this is where this was going, that we had all better get used to seeing him in a Nets uniform. Because KD, at the end of the day, and this is kind of on brand, not necessarily the wishy-washy part, but he's going to play basketball. He's not a dude that's going to pull a James Harden and show up and throw basketballs at people, or show up out of shape, or show up not wanting to play. The Nets always knew that at the end of the day, he was going to play. Kyrie had no options. Like, you know, as the great Chris Rock once said, a man is only as faithful as his options. And Kevin Durant had no other options. Kyrie Irving had no other options but to return and but to look at this and say, you know what? If we all want to play, me, you, Ben Simmons, Seth Curry, like, we could be good. You know, like, yeah, we're frustrated. Yeah, we may not believe in the front office, but on the court, we could be really good if we're all healthy and we're all committed. And so it was the wise choice, even if the initial trade request seemed rash and ill-advised, especially if you're not going to follow through with it and say, you know what, trade me or else. Well, what is your or else? He was only going to go so far with this.
Well, I mean, not to cross streams with politics and everything else here, but you know,
definitely cross the stream.
No, I'm just saying, like, I would love to see the unredacted conversations.
Oh, well played.
You know, I really would. I'd love to see it, because Kyrie says I'm staying, and then Durant says I'm going within 48 hours of each other. But we're told that those are two mutually exclusive decisions, that they're not connected to one another. It's just guys figuring they have to do what they have to do.
Yeah.
And then Durant says, I want the front office out and I want the coach out. And the owner's like, no. And now we're all back together, and they're not happy with the front office that's given them the possibility of playing with each other, right? And adding Simmons and Seth Curry. And, oh, by the way, that Royce O'Neal deal that happened is pretty damn good, too. And then you look at the roster, why would you be upset with the front office?
Well, that's what I was always trying to figure out.
I don't get it.
All the front office did was what you wanted them to do. Like, I don't recall, and correct me if I'm wrong, I don't recall an instance where there was some sort of decision that the players were at odds with. I mean, nobody in their right mind is not going to run your decision-making through Kevin Durant and, by extension, Kyrie Irving in the first place. But they wanted James Harden. They got James Harden. You know, they hired Steve Nash. I mean, it was on Kevin Durant's podcast where Kyrie Irving first infamously uttered the idea of we could all be the head coach. So, okay, y'all all want to have this, you know, this group approach to coaching the team. So you got the coach you wanted, you got the players you wanted. What's held this team back, and I mean, it doesn't fit with the jokes. We all like to get jokes off at this experiment's expense, but it's really simple. It's injuries and vaccine. You know, a global pandemic and one player's unwillingness to get vaccinated, coupled with injuries, did not allow this team to reach its full potential, and therefore people have been able to, you know, default to their initial evaluation that this would never work. We never got a chance to see if it worked. They played 16 games together. But, yeah, I'm with you. I never understood why there was beef with the front office, because the front office didn't tell Kyrie Irving not to get vaccinated. The front office didn't tell, you know, James Harden to jump ship again. The front office didn't get hurt. I mean, it was all silly, and I just wish people would think things through before they decided to go to the extreme of trade me and then double down and say it's me or them. I mean, I guess you can come back from that if you're Kevin Durant because the organization going to say no thanks.
Right, because you're Kevin Durant as well. Yeah. And then, the front office was aggressive enough to get Harden and then aggressive enough to know if it wasn't working to get rid of him and get people that could not only help them right then and there, but maybe for the future. And then, so that's the whole thing. I don't understand. That's why I said I want the unredacted, conversation. Like what has been?
Like how did they squash? How did they do this 180? That's a hell of a sales job.
I know. And how big? How deep is this iceberg underneath the Brooklyn waters here? And what does it mean? And how did they put the genie back in the bottle? Like I don't know how it happened.